I don't believe that we should ever have a good money again before we take the thing out of the hands of government.
Welcome back, everyone. It is the weekend recap. We are Simply Bitcoin. We break down the news, the daily fail, meme review, software releases, hardware releases, and the plebsites. That's right. It's been renamed. Shout out to OK. Anyways, we've got a fellow pleb here. We've got Optimist Fields, co-host of Bitcoin Kindergarten, and right now we're diving into the numbers. Let's do it.
Brought to you by Bitcoin 2022. It's going to be the largest Bitcoin conference celebration ever, hosted in sunny Miami Beach, April 6th and 9th. That's right, the event is coming up in less than a month. Get your tickets quickly before the price goes up. Speaker list includes President Nayib Bukele, Michael Saylor, Saifedean. We have Adam Back, Jack Mahler, Senator Cynthia Lummis, and of course Dr. Peterson, and many, many more. And good news, you can take advantage of the link down below to get 10% off your tickets to the largest Bitcoin conference in the world, Bitcoin 2022.
At the time of this recording, the block height is 729,309. The Bitcoin price, 46,595. Chain rewrite days, 741. Total public lightning capacity, 3,567.90. We are climbing, Nico. Moscow time, 2146. Blocks to the halvening, 110,691. And the unspent Samurai Whirlpool capacity. Samurai Whirlpool is a coin, join, or collaborative spend service. It is not a mixer. And the total unspent capacity there is 4,416.60. Nico, the numbers.
The numbers. Very nice. Very nice.
I just want to say something. I noticed Clark Moody added the corporate treasury on there.
Oh,
and it kind of blew my mind how many Bitcoins are in corporate treasury.
Why don't you pull it up? I'm sure there's a percentage, Phil, as well.
Dude, there's...
it's right there in the middle. Okay, hold on a second. Let's pull that back up.
I don't know if this is new, but I just noticed this the other day. And
right here, held in corporate treasury.
Blew my mind.
1,600,000 Bitcoin.
Oh, it does have a percentage.
You think we should add this to the numbers, Nico?
I don't know. I don't even know if it's interesting. I just I don't know if it means anything. I just noticed that and I was that's a lot of Bitcoin.
If you were to add that to the numbers, you would have to add the percentage of how many Bitcoin that is, which is around 8%. And then you would have to, because if without just saying a million, doesn't give the context.
That's true.
So, I mean, it's a large number, but it's not that big either. Right?
Exactly.
It's a large number, but it's not that big.
Exactly.
Now, what would be interesting, it's funny because governments are going to be the last to the boat. And it's also funny because it's like, yeah, people are going to want to, the governments are going to want to buy it, but it doesn't mean that Bitcoiners are going to be willing to sell it either, right? Because I know that of course, there's going to be people like, oh my God, look at the price I'm going to sell. But, the actual Bitcoiners, like, this is the best money in the world. Why the fuck am I going to give it back? Why am I going to give it to the state, So it's going to be interesting to play out. Speaking of the state, so there was a nuclear bomb of an interview over the weekend. It was with Janet Yellen, and she went on CNBC, and she had some interesting takes. Now, there's a striking difference between her comments earlier on the year where she's saying that, quote, to use her words, crypto is only used for criminal activity, only used to circumvent KYC and whatever. And this was a complete change in tune, which you could surmise this is the acceptance of the industry by the American government. They know this is not going away. Clearly, the industry has tremendous influence in Washington. That influence keeps on increasing. So I don't know, dude. This was fascinating. Maybe you guys will find it fascinating. I don't know. Anyways, let's check out the interview.
Crypto is obviously grown by leaps and bounds, and it's now playing a significant role, not really so much in transactions, but in investment decisions of lots of Americans. And the president just issued a couple of weeks ago an executive order tasking us and other agencies with thinking about the regulation of crypto.
I mean, you're less skeptical about it than in previous. I mean, we've been talking about it together for a long time now, and I think you've had a skepticism about crypto technology.
I have a little bit of skepticism because there are, I think, valid concerns around it. Some have to do with financial stability, consumer investor protection. use for illicit transactions and other things.
Right.
On the other hand, there are benefits from crypto, and we recognize that innovation in the payment system can be a healthy thing. We would like to come out eventually with recommendations that will create a regulatory environment in which healthy innovation can.
So again, a very interesting change of tune. It's fascinating because she said innovation in payments, right? That's all she said. She didn't say innovation in money, right? She didn't say innovation in saving. She said innovation in payments, right? And another thing is that she's giving you this vibe that it's like, yes, it's good only with all being regulation, but it's what I've been telling you guys so much. Only if you take self-custody, really. You could regulate the on and off ramps all you want, but you can't regulate Bitcoin. Bitcoin is unregulatable, right? Only if you take self-custody and if it stays within the Bitcoin ecosystem. So again, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, but this is definitely a change in tune by Janet Yellen, which is the U.S. Treasury Secretary, right? She's responsible for the provision that was snuck into the infrastructure bill, so very interesting to see how this plays out. But anyways, Phil, what are your thoughts on this, my friend?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that she said innovation in payments. So again, they're ignoring the virtues of Bitcoin 100%. We don't expect anything different from Janet Yellen. The other piece to this is that I think she only sees this in relation to her incentives, right? And her incentives is to keep the current system in place and perceived as healthy and moving along. So the truth is that they just see, I feel that she sees it, the Treasury sees it, the Fed sees it as just a way to introduce CBDCs. They just want to take the pieces, from the blockchain that they can and think that oh yeah, we're going to build this thing, but we all know it's just going to be an intranet of garbage, an intranet of control, an intranet of exclusion. And it's just, look, the new system like the old system,
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, but these people aren't, they're not going to use the innovation the way that it should be used.
No, of course they don't see the separation of money and state. They're like, that's what people want. People want better payments. They don't get it. They don't get what is happening here, and it's but in a glass half full kind of way. It's a very, very different change in tune, just like the interviewer pointed out. But anyways, Optimus Fields. My living truth.
I'd agree with you guys. Is this capitulation on their end? I don't know if it's full blown capitulation by Janet Yellen on, Bitcoin is better, how we would love for her to go, go for the culture, Janet. But I do find it funny how you guys point out that it's still them shaping the narrative as just payments. So that's the signal there, obviously. Nico and Phil giving you guys the signal. But I do find it interesting that she makes these statements a few days after what we saw happen in Russia and them saying that they're open to Bitcoin payments. So I don't know if there's a connection there, but we can see how they're kind of playing both sides of the aisle and being like, oh, Bitcoin's good for this, but it's bad for that. So I kind of find it like it's them giving themselves enough leeway down the road where they can either be like, look, we were okay with Bitcoin, or like you're saying, look, we like Bitcoin, but here's our shitcoin. So there's definitely a lot of playbooks that they're laying down right now and shaping the narrative for.
Absolutely. How this is playing out is fascinating because you have a centuries-old system, a way of governing, a way of controlling people, clashing with a new technology, which essentially gives the ability for human beings to transact with each other without the necessity for a third party, which completely undermines the state, right? And they're still in this bargaining phase, which was like, oh, they just want better payment systems. They don't understand that they're completely being disintermediated completely, or perhaps they do understand, but they're refusing to see that anyways, right? But again, this is only useful This is only useful for you if you take self-custody of your Bitcoin. If you have your Bitcoin on an exchange, you could it really does belong to the state. Whether it could be an indirect ownership, but it really does, right? Bitcoin only really belongs to you if you have self-custody of it. But anyways, Phil, there wasn't anything. It's time for
the Daily Fail. Brought to you by Amber App. Check them out, amber.app. Everybody needs to stack sats. It's a Bitcoin stacking app by actual Bitcoiners. Low fees, fair spreads, smart automation. The link is down below.
Amber, the smart way to stack sats.
Nice little, weekend edition. We had a lot of controversy on Twitter, but anyways, we're not going to dive into the Twitter controversies. Instead, we are going to take a look at a couple of just 3 ridiculous things. Let's dive into it. We were tagged by Toxicat in this one. That's right. That's 2 times now that I've mentioned you correctly for something that you've given us. So I'm getting better at this. Wow! That's right. I'm getting better at this. Okay, here we go. So, what was the tweet? If I own it, how can anyone delist it? It's a good question. But you see, you don't. And yeah, this is just, some shitcoin NFT that was delisted by the OpenSea team, but supposedly...
No, read the thing, because it's so ominous, right? It's like CalvinKlein.eth has been delisted under our terms of service. Your money has been frozen under our terms of service. It's the same goddamn concept, bro.
But what the thing is, though, is that if I understand this correctly, they still retain ownership of their shitcoin while it's on the OpenSea market. So this is really ridiculous garbage. That means that it's really not decentralized in any way, and it's just, again, it's just an intranet. It's just more shitcoining. So, anyways, all right, that was a fun one. We're not surprised by OpenSea. Let's move on. Let's move on to little historical reference for everyone. Take a look at this. This is a World Economic Forum tweet from 2017. We're now in 2022. Okay? In 2020, Bitcoin will consume more power than the world does today. They were dead frickin' wrong about that. They were absurdly wrong about that. Now, I want you to think about this. Not only were they a little wrong, they were absurdly wrong. And then if you think about this, okay, 3 years later, we went through whatever the hell just happened in the last 2 years. And then the World Economic Forum tried to introduce the Great Reset with a financial system that was created for a business by a mechanical engineering major. Okay? I want you to think of how ridiculous and stupid these clowns are, and this is our lives, okay? They were dead wrong about this. They're dead wrong about this today. They were dead wrong about this then.
Yep.
It's
just been a total... Thoughts? Yeah, it's been a total fucking clusterfuck. It was the Great Reset failed. I'm sure they're going to still try to implement it limitedly in, the few countries, but now that Russia invaded Ukraine, you no longer have the unipolar world, right? You no longer have the US at the head of everything. When they talk about the international community, what they really mean is Europe and Australia. That's it. That's who's on board. If you look at what countries have signed up to those sanctions, it hasn't been Brazil, it hasn't been Latin America, it hasn't been Asian countries, right? It's been Japan, Europe, and the United States. That's it, right? So you're seeing essentially the end of this decades-old system. And at the head of this, the party of Davos is the World Economic Forum. And essentially that's where all the, the global business leaders and the global political leaders meet. And, they twirl their mustaches and they're like, this is how we make the world a better place. But I think that is peak fiat. I think that's peak centralization. That is the result of fiat currencies, right? And the money printing and all that stuff. And I think that we've passed the little hump. I think now it's on the way down, right? But that could be very slow, but I think that's what's happening here. And you see other countries, which we're going to get to a little bit on the news, you're seeing other countries look for other solutions than the US dollar, which is what gives the US government so much power. It's what gives these people so much power. When they opt out, when they decide to use a remedy or or a different type of currency to settle, or perhaps Bitcoin, right? It takes away power directly from these psychopaths, and that's what they are. They really are. They think that because they've accumulated a lot of wealth, or they have these crazy, credentials, they think they know what's best for millions upon millions of people making their own decisions, right? It's absolute ludicrous. Anyways, Bitcoin protects you from these crazy people, but only if you take self-custody. Anyways, Optimus, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm gonna take an against the grain look on this one, because I agree with the narrative of the week that Bitcoin should take more energy on planet Earth. So I think that it's kind of bearish that we didn't, hit that narrative right there by the week. We should have taken over the world's energy to secure the hardest money on planet Earth. I don't see why we're using energy for anything else. All other energy use is a waste. Therefore, guys, plug in some more miners. We need more Bitcoin power. We need to secure the hardest money ever, guys.
Yeah,
let's go.
That's quite toxic. That's quite a toxic, Optimist.
But bullish is fun.
But, as a joke, of course. And it's funny because these are the same. The World Economic Forum supports Ethereum, right?
Exactly.
But they attack Bitcoin. If that doesn't make you bullish on Bitcoin, I don't know what does. Anyways, Phil, what is the next fail? Winning? What is the next fail,
Right.
Phil?
Check this out, guys. Here we go. It's not really about the NFTs. Pay attention to the signal. Let's dive into this little story here. 2 NFT rug pullers arrested for $1.1 million in NFT scam. The U.S. Justice Department announced that 2 men have been charged with conspiracy to commit wire fraud and money laundering in connection with $1 million scheme to defraud purchasers of NFTs advertised as Frosties. I love the name. There was a really cool place to buy computer parts where I used to live in Montreal named Frosties. Anyways, it's a great name. All right. We give them props for the names. Approximately 3 hours after the sale, the proceeds of the Frosties NFT sale that had been transferred to the Frosties wallet address 1 were then transferred to separate cryptocurrency wallet address 356 ETH was sent to the fraud wallet address as later identified by the investigators. IRS investigators matched Nguyen and Lacuna's IP addresses used for promoting Frosties on Discord with corresponding accounts on Coinbase. This is the signal in this article. The KYC requirements imposed by the U.S. exchange to its customers allowed law enforcement to figure out the identities of the account holders. That's right, people. The law works for you. Okay? And they just showed you why taking everyone's data and all those data breaches and now all the problems that those data breaches cause, okay? That's all of it is now validated. All of it is validated now because they stopped this one thing through KYC. This makes it all worth it.
Dude,
it's fantastic. But you see what they do? You see the bullshit, the bullshit narrative that they pull, where they essentially what's happening is that whole article is all fluff. That's the piece right there to let you know that these practices are important and they're needed. And we just showed you proof how it helps.
Yep. No, that's exactly fucking spot on, dude. That is literally, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's funny because they don't talk about the failures when there's a data leak, obviously because of the centralization of all that data. They don't talk about how the system completely excludes half the planet. All those people that can't afford to get an ID, or they just don't live next to a government bureaucracy where they make IDs, and now all of those people aren't allowed to use money because of the places that they happen to be born in. That isn't talked about. It's talked about that one occasion where KYC worked what it was designed to do, but of course ignore Dr. Ron Paul's research where he literally comes to the conclusion, right, that KYC and AML only stops 0.01% of crime. Ignore all of that. Pay attention to this, right? It's dude, it's insane. But that's what we do. We provide
typical bullshit.
We provide a counter narrative. Anyways, Optimus, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, that's why you buy NFTs, right? No, but KYC is the illicit activity, guys. Shout out hashtag Azteco Army. Go use BIS. You know, go use CoinFlip. Let's start
Hodl.
Yeah, exactly. Let's start, you know, if you have KYC exchange Bitcoin, try to find ways to get some non-KYC Bitcoin, you know, just diversify your Bitcoin buys, guys. Come on. Don't diversify into shit coins. Just make sure you have different ways of buying your Bitcoin.
That's some signal right there. Signal, not noise. And yeah, but this is just going to keep on heating up. And unfortunately, a lot of NPCs are brainwashed that in order to use money, the government needs to know who you are. And I think that's completely wrong. The world worked for hundreds of years before the Bank Secrecy Act, before all these things, before the 1970s. The world worked just fine without any KYC, without any of this, and the world didn't burn down. So as much as they would like to make you believe that this system is necessary, we're trying to make the argument that it's not. But anyways, Phil,
hold on, Nico. You said something good, bro. You said something real good there. The point of money is I don't have to trust the people I freaking transact with, guys. So, like, fundamentally, from first principles, you understand why you don't need KYC. Nico, again with the signal, like, come on, guys. It's really simple. Like, break it down, boys. If I can understand, then you can too.
And that's some signal right there. Signal, not noise, by the legendary Optimus Fields. But anyways, Phil, it's time for
the Daily Meme Review.
Brought to you by Citadel 21. It's the best Bitcoin cultural zine. It's stories, articles, comics by actual Bitcoiners. Every volume has different artwork by Bitcoiners, of course, Bitcoin artists. And they're scarce. There's only 1,000 physical copies made per volume. Get your print of Citadel 21 today. All right, everybody, the first meme is brought to us by the legendary meme lord, RD, BTC. Just holding Bitcoin. Me hodling Bitcoin through the inflation death spiral. This is absolutely true. So stoic on Peter's face. Anyways, moving on to the next one. By Gua. Thanks for the tag, bro. If you tag us on Twitter, you will make it onto the meme review. Anyways, I was talking to my grandpa about Bitcoin, and he showed me where he keeps his cold storage wallet. It's so hilarious. To be honest with you, it's funny, but I would not be surprised if people started making fake tooths to put their seeds in to cross borders. I don't think that's too crazy. Yeah. Here's Ben the Carman. 5 Bens speaking at the Bitcoin conference. Ben Ark, Ben Gagan, Ben Prince, Benjamin Ditcher, Ben the Carman, and that's it. So 5 Bens. 5 Bens. Lots of Bens. Ben upon Ben upon Ben. Anyways, here is Vitalik, and this is, the famous Time magazine cover that Tom Brady, simped on. And it says, JP Morgan helped me create an unregistered security, then we took 70% for ourselves before offering it to the market. That's absolutely hilarious. And for anyone who's not in the know, this is referencing the 70% pre-mine that Ethereum had. Anyways, as a tweet by Jameson Lopp. This is the state of the world nowadays, and I think this tweet perfectly, summarizes this. People, we have a hole in the floor. Are you an expert in shipbuilding? If there is a hole, it's for a reason. Aren't you ashamed to say something like that about our ship? Everyone, let's mind our own business. I'm so proud of our boat. I like it with that hole even better. Guys, let's not be negative. I'm not listening. I'm eating here. I have a different point of view of the whole situation. Are you going to fix it? Sit down and be quiet, smartass. Technically, it's not a hole. It's a special port. Jonathan has 2 of these in his boat. It's okay. It's so true.
Oh, my God.
And this is exactly why it's so hard, speaking about self-custody. And we get a lot of the ETH comments, right? Let me read you this comment because it was freaking ridiculous. And all right, so T-Bird, Mr. T, said, I love the maxis, but they failed to realize many projects don't compete with Bitcoin. Yeah, fine.
All pretending to be money. No, they're all pretending to be money, and then they attach a utility use case to that. That's all bullshit. It doesn't matter.
It's not about competition. It's about separation money from state. So it's like if you're buying a shitcoin, you're not separating money from state. You're buying something that is more centralized so that you can get your Lambo. That's what you're doing. And look, at the end of the day, if you want to gamble, so be it. That's fine. You want to buy a shitcoin because you want more Bitcoin? Go for it. But don't kid yourself. What you're buying is dog shit. Anyways, Moving on. And that's okay, dude. If you want to buy a shitcoin because you want more Bitcoin, go for it. That's fine. Just understand what it is you're buying. Anyways, how to deal with shitcoin peddlers.
What do you know?
Anyways, moving on by Kyle. This is unironically is where we're headed with central bank digital currencies, I might add. Card decline. Please delete all tweets that violate your bank's hate speech policies to proceed to process payment. It's absolutely true. It's scary. It's funny, but it's also true. That is exactly where we're heading. And for that, I'm going to give it a Scooby-Doo. Yeah. Yeah.
Would have got away with it if it wasn't for those meddling Bitcoin plebs.
Anyways.
I love it.
Phil, what would you give those memes?
All right. I've got a memory box, and in this memory box is 32 gig USB memory in the memory box.
Interesting. Anyways, Optimus, what would you give those memes?
So it just so happens that today I was gifted this very special gift, and I'm going to use this as my rating. And it is a 50,000 Turkish lira dollar bill as a sign of what happens to fiat money when it dies.
A 50,000 lira bill? Ah, that's very cool. All right. That's very... Phil?
I just wanted to point something out, okay? The meme about the bends. Okay, why is that funny? This is a niche meme, okay? Because there's Tucson Bitcoin and Skeef that for some reason are Ben minimalists, okay? Or they are anti-Ben activists. And we here at Simply Bitcoin, we support the Bens. Okay? We are avid Ben supporters. That's right. Okay? That's how it works. We support the Bens. So that's why we showed, look, there's 5 Bens speaking at the conference.
I thought you said we were apolitical, Phil.
We are apolitical, but we support the Bens because you know why? Because the Bens are good for Bitcoin.
Oof. That sounds like some Big Brother double speak right there, Phil.
Yeah,
it might be.
I like the Bens. I like the Bens.
Are you saying we don't support the Bens, Nico?
I love the Bens. I love
the Bens.
I love the Bens. Anyways, guys, we want to know.
He's not saying we support the Bens.
We want to know. If you agree with our scores, you disagree, let us know down in the comment section. And of course, make sure to subscribe to us on alternative video platforms like rumble.com and bitcointv.com. And of course, make sure to join our dank Telegram group and link us some dank Bitcoin memes to review because of Bitcoin meme review. We need some memes to review. But anyways, Phil, it's time for
the Daily News.
Brought to you by CryptoCloaks.com. They make the best 3D printed Bitcoin merch, like the famous 3D printed Bitcoin art sculpture. Opens up, you put your favorite hardware wallet in there. Also, you can get this in any custom color your heart desires. You want to make this orange? You could do that. This just happens to be in the color of El Salvador. And you can take advantage of the link down below for 5% off anything off the CryptoCloaks.com online store. All right, everybody. So, connect this with the video that I played earlier during the numbers section, where Janet Yellen says, "Yes, we like the payment." So essentially, what she's doing is, yes, we like our payment. We like the central bank digital currencies. This is the Fed finally having to compete with the free market to who has the better money, and the only way they will win is money by decree, money by force, money by coercion. They won't win if it's a free market getting to decide which money's better. Bitcoin has obviously been winning that fight, and I suspect that it's going to be unbeatable. Anyways, this is a tweet by the Federal Reserve. Why is the Federal Reserve considering a central bank digital currency? I could answer that. To stay relevant, and they say, while the Federal Reserve has made no decisions on whether to pursue or implement a central bank digital currency, or CBDC, we have been exploring the potential benefits and risks of central bank digital currencies from a variety of angles, including through technology, research, and experimentation. Now, here's the thing. My Twitter account isn't that big. They almost have 1 million followers, and they only got 261 likes for this. Come on, memes get more likes than this, bro. Okay? Like, anyways, clearly it's not that popular. Federal Reserve issued a discussion paper examining pros, cons of a CBDC. As part of this process, we are seeking feedback on a range of CBDC topics. Now, here's the thing. They are not listening to this feedback, because if they were to listen, all it says is just like, this is the most totalitarian system either. But it's not only, Bitcoin Twitter saying this as well. You have the governor of Florida. They asked him about this, and let's see what he has to say, which is exactly what we've all been saying.
And there's a difference between a decentralized digital currency, cryptocurrency like a Bitcoin, and what some are talking about doing at the federal level to convert US dollars into basically a digital currency. I think there's a lot of hazards with that when that's centrally controlled. I worry about the amount of power that would give someone in a central authority to basically be able to shut off access to purchasing certain goods. We'd be in uncharted territories, and we've seen how some of these financial institutions acting at the behest of government can cut people off. Can you imagine if the federal government actually controlled whether you could even go in? So I know Biden issued an executive order. I'm very concerned about that, and I think it's something that we need to be watching very, very closely. And there's
a lot of things to break down, right? So clearly, you have some governors that are on board on this. And now this is what I was talking about, though, that what I suspect is going to happen with Bitcoin is that Bitcoin might become illegal. Might. I don't know if Bitcoin takes over slowly, I don't see Bitcoin becoming illegal. If Bitcoin it's a rapid takeover, they might do some knee-jerk reaction because they, the pediatric class in this country gets scared and, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know how it's going to play out exactly, but this is what I want you to remember. I think Bitcoin is going to play out just like the marijuana industry, whereas in the marijuana industry is illegal on a federal level, but on a state level, it's legal, like in the state of California, like in Oregon, like in Colorado, right? So I suspect what you'll start to see is Bitcoin strongholds in the state of Wyoming, in the state of Texas, in the state of Florida. And I might add that Governor DeSantis is the second runner for president after Donald Trump, right? So that's really exciting, right? That you have a potential president of the United States potentially becoming an advocate of Bitcoin, and more importantly, being strongly against central bank digital currencies. And now the thing with central bank digital currencies is that it's funny, because essentially, like, for central bank digital currencies to work, they would have to kill the banking industry. Because think about it, right? It would essentially make the banking industry obsolete. Why would banks exist if the Federal Reserve can just be the bank, right? So it kind of puts them in a precarious situation. Are you going to kill the banking industry? Are you going to become the banking of the world? But it's like, but if there's another option, then how are they going to try to convince people that their technology is needed, right? So it's very fascinating how this is going to play out. We've never lived through a moment like this in history, ever, right? When the internet took over, it essentially, I would say, magnified every other industry, right? Like but we've never lived in a world where the state or a king or a government didn't control the money. That's never existed before. So to speculate on what is going to happen, I think is stupid. But just to paint the picture and let your imagination go wild is what I'm trying to do. Anyways, Phil.
Okay, so as you were talking, like sitting there, and I'm like, all right, how bad does this get? Because I'm trying to picture, right? That you make a good point. What are they going to do with all these people in the banking industry? Like, all these people, like, well, what are they supposed to do for a job, right? They have to retrain these people. Well, what are they going to retrain these people to do exactly, right?
Check Clark Moody.
Huh?
Check Clark Moody.
Check Clark Moody, yeah, exactly, right? Or, right, so I was thinking, okay, so what else could they do? These people become like monitors, right? Like they have to retrain the banking industry. And let's face it, if the government is now issuing everything and there is no more banking industry, so now all of a sudden, so we somewhat agree that unfortunately, if there's CBDCs, the government is going to introduce a social credit system, as we've seen. That requires employment. So it wouldn't surprise me if many people from the banking industry would end up being retrained into somehow working in this social credit system. And I don't know, possibly analyzing casework or something like that. Like Nico, maybe it's not just like one thing that you do wrong. Maybe it's that you watch the wrong channels and you drove to the wrong part of town and you used too much gas.
If you watch Simply
what
Bitcoin,
I mean?
it's minus 500 social credit system. It's right to score.
Definitely.
If you shitpost on Twitter, you literally can't do anything.
Yeah, you can't go to the grocery store. They turn off your car. Like, you watch Simply Bitcoin on your dashboard, like, what?
Like, what the hell? You're pressing the button like nothing's happening.
Oh man. Anyways,
seriously, like, I don't know, like how dystopian does it become, right? I mean, this is just. Anyways,
it's absolutely terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. Optimus, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, first off, the picture you guys are painting is absolutely terrifying. Can't write even a more terrifying dystopian book than that. But look, my name is Optimus Field. I always give the optimistic, naive take. But I feel like, dude, if the government's smarter than making Bitcoin illegal, because in my opinion, that legitimizes Bitcoin. If a government tries to make it illegal, that's why I would want to be buying Bitcoin. But I know there's people that aren't as radical as me and want to, paint between the lines. So I could see how that would turn people off. But in my opinion, I just don't see them going to that overt move to be like, we're going to outright ban Bitcoin. I think it's going to be more sly and roundabout ways. And like we're talking about, regulating on the back end and slipping, paperwork in that no one's watching. So I don't know, maybe I'm not in touch with what's actually going to happen because, me, I'm apolitical. I don't know what's happening in politics. All I know is that they're all trying to scam you. And so I don't trust anything they do. So I don't doubt that they can pull some shit on us, but I just don't think they will go that far because, like I said, man, if you make Bitcoin illegal, that's to me like the most signal I've ever heard of why you should be buying Bitcoin. Separate money from state. Oh, wow, the state doesn't like it? Duh. Like, it's just a duh to me. But again, I'm a radical. I'm a less than, I'm an outcast on the social credit score. I already know this. I'm a leper. I've concluded and I'm fine with this.
Dude, and and I think you hit the nail on the head, right? Is what the lengths to which they go is something we don't know, but we're starting to see how the picture is playing out. Phil said something really interesting. At what lengths would they go, right? I don't think what they'll do is outlaw Bitcoin per se, but what they'll do is they'll outlaw self-custody, which is something that we've been hammering into your guys' heads. And that's exactly what we're already seeing play out. Phil covered in December. We're seeing essentially self-custody become, or in Korea, essentially a Korean exchange, right, making it difficult. And we heard some news from Europe over the weekend that once again, self-custody in Europe is in danger. And it's not that they're outlawing self-custody directly. They're saying that self-custody wallets allow transactions without AML and KYC, right? So again, it's what Optimus was saying. It's a nefarious backdoor. It's not that they're outlawing Bitcoin directly. It's that they're using the regulatory moat to once again attack the honey badger. Now, this is a very scary attempt, right? We saw an attempt in Europe also to outlaw proof of work, and here again we have another attempt in Europe to outlaw self-custody because self-custody allows transactions without the whole KYC AML burden, right? So very interesting. This is going to intensify. I don't know if this is going to pass, but anyways, let's see what Patrick Hansen had to say. I hate to ring the alarm bell again, but the EU Parliament leaves us no choice. This time it concerns a crackdown on unhosted wallets in the upcoming crypto AML regulation. The Econ Committee vote is on Thursday, and the draft includes some absolute red flags. Background: the EU Commission's AML package includes a revision of the transfer of funds regulation that will extend the obligation of financial institutions to accompany transfer of funds with information on the payer and payee to crypto assets. initial proposal from the EU Commission, initial draft report from the EU Parliament. We will put that, of course, in the link description. It is the EU's implementation of the so-called, here it is again, Financial Action Task Force travel rule. Financial Action Task Force, by the way, is an unelected bureaucracy that decides how the financial world should regulate. But they're unelected, right?
They're scammers.
That basically says that crypto service providers, exchanges, custodians have to share personal information, name and addresses of their clients for transactions between one another. The EU Parliament is currently discussing and amending that proposal, and the latest draft compromise before the vote on Thursday introduced aggravated some absolute red flags. First red flag, different from the initial proposal that only required to collect personal data from transfers made to an unhosted wallet, the draft now proposes verify the accuracy of information with respect to the originator or beneficiary behind the unhosted wallet. But it doesn't say how exactly it doesn't matter. And this is what I was saying. It doesn't matter how. It's not meant to make sense. Anyways, say exactly a crypto service provider should be able to verify the unhosted counterpart. The consequence of this is that most crypto companies won't be able or willing to transact with unhosted wallets anymore in order to stay compliant, right? Second, for every crypto transfer from an unhosted wallet over 1,000 euros, companies are obliged to inform the competent AML authorities. For all these transactions, even if there is no sign/suspicion of money laundering, this is an absolute violation of privacy rights. I agree. Third, 1 year after entry into application, the EU Commission will assess the need of additional specific measures to mitigate the risk posed by transfers from or to unhosted wallets, including the introduction of possible restrictions. So you're not allowed to download Bitcoin Core. That's what they're saying. They're dressing it up in legalese, but they're saying without, and look, guys, zoom out. Why are they going after exchanges? Why? Because it's much easier to regulate a handful of exchanges than it is to regulate millions upon millions of people hosting their own keys and transacting with each other. That's why. All of the other reasons, they're bullshit. And we've dedicated this show to debunking why they're bullshit. Anyways, moving on. This means that the EU Commission might be prohibiting transfers from to unhosted wallets entirely, as was already suggested by some members of parliament earlier in the draft. While the FATF travel rule only requires these measures for transactions over a certain amount, the TFR for fiat only requires information sharing for transfers over 1,000. That means that soon every single Satoshi transaction that is not purely peer-to-peer will have to be accompanied by the sharing of personal information. This is a totally unjustifiable double standard because it's not meant to be a standard. It's meant to kill through regulation. If anything, the AML requirements for cryptocurrency should be lower since blockchain-based transfers over new and additional ways to track and monitor. There are more problematic passages in the text, but these are the main ones to focus on. This proposal cracks down on unhosted wallets, self-custody. Again, don't normalize this lingo. Don't normalize that. Because Bitcoin, you can't see what is an unhosted or hosted wallet. There's no difference between an unhosted Bitcoin address and a hosted Bitcoin address. The only difference is that a hosted Bitcoin address belongs to an exchange which the government could pressure. And it creates huge data honeypots for hackers. It will lead to a system that is very close to SWIFT today, where every crypto transfer is accompanied by a transfer of personal information. So again, they're trying to impose the old system, the system of exclusion that has essentially decided that half the world is unbankable based on the country that they happen to be born in, or they happen to be born in a country that the US has sanctions on, right? And that is what they're trying to normalize. They're trying to Frankenstein the old system on top of Bitcoin because they've realized that they can't ban it outright. So we are witnessing, right, the obvious chaos that is creation with the separation of money and state, and which is why we always say that the Bitcoin revolution isn't going to be in countries that most benefit from the fiat financial system. I doubt it's going to be the United States. I doubt it's going to be Europe. It's going to be countries like El Salvador. It's going to be countries like Tonga. It's going to be countries like the Ukraine. It's going to be countries like Russia. It's going to be countries in Africa. It's going to be countries that don't benefit from the money printer. Those countries have absolutely no incentive to fight for that system's survival. Unlike the countries that most benefit from the fiat system, which is why they're fighting so hard to demonize self-custody, because they know, and I've always said this, if enough people self-custody their Bitcoin, it's game over. It's done, set, and match. They have absolutely no chance. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to stop the bleeding. They're saying, hey, we're trying to... Again, it's not going to work, right? What they're going to try to do, what they're doing is they're showing their cards, right? They're painting out, listen, without our systems of control, the whole world is going to burn down. The whole world is not capable of functioning. I would like to say that is bullshit. These bureaucrats are watching their jobs, they're watching their backs, and they're trying to stay relevant. And the way they're doing that is by regulating Bitcoin to death and with central bank digital currencies. They won't win this, but it doesn't mean it's not going to be bloody in the transition. Phil?
You know what? I think just last week or the week before we were reading that the EU was trying to pass some regulation against proof of work mining. And now we see this attack on quote unquote unhosted wallets. I mean, look, we said that this is the then they fight you stage. This isn't going to stop here. They're only going to continue to double down. But again, I think what most of us kind of miss is the big picture, which is really this is an attack on freedom of speech, and it's an attack on communication, and really, if we want to break it down, it's an attack on language itself. So you know what, I'm afraid, because these people, I mean, they won't quit. And it's really scary what they want to do. I mean, imagine not being able to download software. Not only that, we've already shown Christine Lagarde's a convicted felon. Not that she has anything to do necessarily with this, but she does. At least from a side perspective. And the FATFA, as you indicated, isn't even an elected body. I mean, this is ridiculous. These people make up this regulation. They impose it upon average, everyday people. And it's
to protect themselves, dude.
Of course, I was just going to say, the organizations that need that, you know what I mean? Like, the organizations themselves are able to bypass and get the pat on the back, you know what I mean? Whereas the individual suffers through these ridiculous decisions. And I mean, don't get me wrong, once, God forbid they actually succeed in this, okay? God forbid the EU actually succeeds in this. Do you think it stops there? But what do you think happens to your Bitcoin once it's all on the exchanges, right? You thought that once 6102, everybody thought that once their gold was in the banks, it was all good, it was protected, it was in the banks. Then they just took it away. So what do you think's going to happen once everything is on the exchanges? What do you think's going to happen?
Thanks for your Bitcoin. Here is the European Union, the Euro central bank digital currency. It's much better.
You just get this. I'm telling you, what do you think? Anyways, it's just insane.
Yeah,
this is wrong.
If you live in Europe, take self custody. Yes. Do it now. Anyways, Optimus Fields.
First of all, guys, the revolution is self custody. That's what we're here to do, is to take back control of your money. So, guys, if your Bitcoin's still on an exchange, you need to wake up. And then, second of all, I have this quote keep playing in my head as you guys have been talking on this bit about it's a moral obligation to oppose unjust laws. I forget who exactly said it, but it's been said over and over again. And it reminded me of a tweet that Francis Poulier put out, and it's rule 2, don't open the mail. And so it's just this idea of I don't know about you guys, but I don't think personally any institution has any legitimacy in my eyes. So don't give them any legitimacy by agreeing to their lunacy. Don't open the mail. If they really, if they really mattered, you'll know. Like, just because they're saying some stuff, guys, like, come on. I'm not advocating for you guys to break laws. I'm just saying, don't legitimize them. Like, whatever they say, fight it, but like also know, like, yo, you can't control me. Free men don't ask for permission. Like,
it's just to add to Optimus's point. What they're trying to demonize is you running your own software and you storing a password. That is a bad thing. That is what they're trying to tell you. And for you essentially sending some numbers to someone else, that is a bad thing. This is how terrified, this is how desperate they are. Make no mistake, Bitcoin is winning. If Bitcoin was not winning, these unjust laws that they're trying to force down everyone's throat wouldn't be passing. Make no mistake, central bank digital currencies are only going to work through coercion. Bitcoin works through incentives. So this is the battle for our time. You know, this is how it's playing out. It's absolutely scary, but it's going to get scarier before it gets better. This is the then they fight you stage, and after the stage everyone knows, then you win. But it's going to get a whole lot rockier before it gets better, and the way that you protect yourself is buy Bitcoin, opt out, take self-custody, opt out of the madness, and yeah, just stay on top of things. But anyways, Phil, there was an open source software release today. It was a software wallet, which, you know, could potentially become illegal in Europe very soon. Why don't you tell everybody about it?
Software releases. Brought to you by CipherSafe. Check them out, ciphersafe.io. Guys, you got to store your Bitcoin seed. You hear what we're talking about with software wallets. That doesn't make a difference. You need to make sure your seed is secure. Store it in the Cypher Wheel or store it in the all-new Cypher Grid. Both come with a tamper-resistant wire, but the grid comes with a punch tool. All right, we've got Electrum version 4.2.1 that was released. It's down below in the show notes. Don't forget to check us out on our audio-only platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. And if you want to stream us sats, fountain.fm.
Awesome. Thank you, Phil. All right, guys, before we go, I want to give a very special shout out to our awesome thread sponsor, rephard.com. Phil and I we do wear the hoodies every episode. Represent LTD.com, and you can take advantage of the link down below for 10% off anything off the rephard.com store. I also want to give a very special shout out to a dear friend of the show. We became best buddies during the bear market, the legendary Optimus Fields, also known as My Livin' Truth on Twitter. He is the host of the legendary Bitcoin Kindergarten, which is essentially a brother or sister of Simply Bitcoin. There are every Wednesday spaces on Twitter at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Guys, that was the show. If you enjoyed the show and you know what to do, smash that like button. And of course, if you want to continue hearing the Bitcoin news from the plebe perspective and the catastrophic fails, definitely consider subscribing to Simply Bitcoin. We'll see you tomorrow, guys, for a brand new episode.
CBDCs are the key to their dystopian future. We've got Bitcoin, so there's hope.